Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Huge bit of transfer news today as it's been reported over in France that Lucas Paqueta has handed in a transfer request at Lyon. He wants to leave this club this transfer window. But what does this mean for Newcastle? Newcastle have always stated in the past that if the opportunity becomes available for a player they want, then they will try and seize that opportunity. But do they want Lucas Paqueta? That is the point of this video today. But anyway guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, make sure to get down there, hit that subscribe button. I highly appreciate your support. As well as that, you can get down there, smash the like button. And finally, question of the day. Do you guys want Lucas Paqueta? His transfer value is around about £54 million. I'll tell you some possibilities how Newcastle can actually pay off that deal if they do proceed to try and get him. But yeah, he's about £54 million a player is worth. And finally, before we get into it, Kieran Clark is set to be the third player out of Newcastle in the final year of his contract now. He is set to go out on loan to Sheffield United, which will completely just end his Newcastle career. I agree with that move. Nothing against the player, but his last year at the club, I can't defend him in the last year at the club. He really did. Just dig his own grave, I feel like, and it's the correct thing to get rid of him. But yeah, anyway though, best of luck, Kieran Clark, and without further ado, let's get into it. The best way I've decided to do this video is I'm going to put Lucas Paqueta into 5 different questions. I'm going to answer all these questions, and at the end, I'll tell you what I honestly think. Do I think Newcastle will try and sign him? Do I think Newcastle will get him? But anyway though, the first question, does Newcastle actually want to sign Lucas Paqueta? Straight up, yes they do. Eddie Howe stated in an interview in the past that the relationship between Bruno and Paqueta is quite important, and when he's bringing players into a club, that's a factor he considers in players. Lucas Paqueta is clearly a better midfielder than what we have. He is exceptional. His return last season is phenomenal for a midfielder. He really is at the top of his game, starting for Brazil week in, week out. And he is a player that obviously in the past has been leaked in Newcastle wearing the top of Bruno's back garden. Of course, in that case, he was just playing football with Bruno and Joelinton. But I fully stand by he went to Newcastle for some sort of business-related activity. Yes, he went down for Bruno's Mrs. birthday. Yes, he did, that is true. But I also think he went down there either to sightsee the city or to have some form of contact with the club. I fully believe there was some sort of business interest, that there's always something else that meets the eye. He was down in Newcastle before the last game of the season, and he was actually dropped for the first time in about 19 matches from Lyon. So he was either dropped from the club for doing that, or the club decided not to play him last game of the season. So obviously you guys can be the judge of that one. The point I'm making though is that I think Newcastle would definitely want to sign Lucas Paqueta. I don't know if they'll go out their way and try and get it done, especially when they need to sort the attack in a minute, but this is a player Newcastle will want to be all over. We saw with Bruno how much of an impact he's made to the football club and on the pitch. Newcastle, if they got another opportunity to sign his best mate, then I think the club will try and take it. Just my personal opinion. Yes, I'm going to be biased, obviously, but I do fully stand by this club wanting Paqueta. The second question now, and quite a tricky one. Can Newcastle afford to sign Lucas Paqueta this transfer window? The money is there, yes, but they need to sort the attack first. Have they got the money to get the attack and Lucas Paqueta in? I'm not sure, to be honest. I think especially Newcastle, it's not so much they've got a transfer budget, but they don't want to spend an awful amount because it will affect us years down the line on the financial fair play. Everton's a good example of a team that had little to spend in the transfer window because they spent so much the year prior. So it's going to be quite a tricky one to handle. One possibility in how Newcastle could potentially sign Lucas Paqueta this summer would be in installments. So they could pay a set amount now, and over the course of 2 to 3 years, they could pay off the full deal. So they could pay essentially about £18 million now, then another 18 million, another 18 million. If Lyon was to agree to that, obviously that's a complete different kettle of fish. But it is a possibility how Newcastle could potentially work out these remaining deals for the rest of the transfer window. But it's going to be complicated. It just depends what the club wants to do. Will the club be able to loan out a player in the attack, then get another attacker in, then get a midfielder in? I don't know. I can't answer that question. The money is there to sign the player. It's just how the club wants to sort of sanction that money, how the club wants to get these individual players in. Now, one point I want to make, by the way, regarding Lucas Paqueta is, yes, he's an attacking midfielder, but under the last 50 games he's played, he's actually quite a wide-ranged player, so he can play all over the pitch. He's a bit like Joelinton, where he came as a striker, but we transformed it into a centre midfielder. Now, the club could potentially stick him out on the right-hand side, or the club could decide to play him up top. The point is, he's dynamic. He can play all over the pitch. The club wants players that can play in multiple positions. They want players that can fill in if somebody gets injured, just to have that squad depth even higher. Dan Burn, for example, can play left back and centre half. Yes, he prefers to play centre half and he's better at centre half. But if the option is there, if he needs to be left back, he can be left back. And that's the sort of thing that the club would take into consideration for a player like Lucas Paqueta. He can play everywhere. And the club might actually sign him as an attacking player instead of a midfield role. So, yes, personally for me, I don't think the club would do that. I think the club, if they were to sign him, would have him as that midfielder. But the opportunity is there if the club wants to have him in an attacking role. So keep an eye on that one. On to the third question now. Does Bruno play a part in this deal? Can Bruno convince Paqueta to join Newcastle? Would Paqueta want to play with Bruno again? Yes, 100%. You can tell straight away the connection between those two. They're besties. Those two love each other. Honestly, I don't think those two could actually spend much time away from each other, to be honest. Paqueta went down to Southampton when Bruno scored that back heel volley. He actually was in the stands watching that game, so he travelled all the way over to the UK just to watch Bruno play for Newcastle. So they definitely do have a really strong connection for each other. As I said before, Eddie Howe, the manager himself, knows the relationship between the two players. So chances are, Bruno, whenever he'll always be texting the player, he'll always be keeping in contact with the player. And that's key for this sort of deal, especially when there's another Premier League team like Arsenal who are clearly trying to get the player in. Because of Newcastle United, they aren't playing Champions League football next season. So yes, they have European football, but it's not at Champions League level. And Lucas Paqueta could potentially opt down to play for the project instead of the bigger picture now. Newcastle and Arsenal, obviously Arsenal is by far the bigger club. They have a better team. Probably a better short-term future, but Newcastle potentially in the long run might have a better chance. It just depends on how Stan Kroenke is, because he's an awful owner, but he seems to be having quite a good transfer into Arsenal. So yeah, it's quite a hard one to call with them. But for Newcastle though, the project there, Amanda Stavey, as I said in the past, I think she's a great persuader. I really feel like if she was on the phone call to Paqueta, she could definitely pull some strings in there. And listen, it just depends what the player wants. But we get on to Paqueta in just a moment. As for Bruno though, he will play a part for sure. He will constantly be texting the player. I'll bet every pound I've got, Bruno will either ask the club directly or Bruno will try and convince Paqueta himself to join. There'll just be something behind the scenes that Bruno will try and do. He will definitely play a part in this. Question 4. Will Lyon sell Paqueta this transfer window? Just because the players put a transfer request in not necessarily means that the club will sell him. For me though, yes, I think that the correct offer is there. Lyon want that £54 million. If £54 million is there in a deal, then yes, I think the club will sell. They're at that point now where if the player is outright saying that he wants to leave the club can't do an awful amount, because if the player runs down his contract, he'll just leave on a free anyway. So the club has to try and make the money while they can. And £54 million is a lot of money, especially in the French league as well. Lyon, as they did with Bruno, can actually get a good amount of money there and just evaluate the squad and try and add new additions in there. I mean, £54 million, they can't say no really if the offer comes up. It just depends how that offer comes up. I sort of offered the suggestion before, Newcastle potentially putting in installments. Lyon might just go, no, we want £54 million straight up. That's the deal. It just depends how the club's going to play this one. And Newcastle, we've obviously, if we are going to try and sign the player, we've got to play to our own strengths. We can't afford to try and get mugged off. We were patient with Botman. We eventually got the player in. But Leo, every single time they moved the goalposts, they continued to move the goalposts. They wanted more money off this club because they knew how much money Newcastle have. The club, we refused to do it. And in the end, we eventually got our player. Our hard work paid off. We can try and do the same again here if the club desires it. And for my final question, does Lucas Paqueta want to join Newcastle United? Now, I can't answer that question. I am not Lucas Paqueta. I can't get into the player's mind and tell you what he wants. From the report, obviously, he wants to move elsewhere. And from the fact Arsenal seem to be knocking on the door quite a bit, it seems to suggest that he wants to move to the Premier League. So Newcastle place their interest in there. Who knows? Like I said before, we're in that position now where, yes, we can't go out there and get every player we want, especially like Sterling, who went to Chelsea yesterday. We would never ever got Raheem Sterling because we haven't got the needs that player wants. But for players that haven't got that Champions League requirement, or haven't got that huge money mindset, players that are willing to go on a project and willing to believe and willing to strive as players and try and reach those goals, then yeah, Newcastle United is a pretty good club. We are no longer a stepping stone. Newcastle is a club that players can comfortably join and know they have a future there. I think especially under a previous ownership, players will just join because it's a Premier League club, and when the time is right, they'll shut off elsewhere and join a bigger club. Newcastle now, we're a club where players can honestly sit down for a few years and know that they're progressing their careers at the club. So that is huge for Newcastle, for players, especially at his age as well. Yeah, I think it's a definite possibility for him. Obviously, again, I'm going to be quite biased here. I think from what I can tell in reports, I think he would want to move to the Premier League, but again, that's nothing to do with the player really. That's just what the media sort of feeding me, so who knows, that could be completely incorrect. But yeah, I can't really answer that question, but if the offer's there, then I could see him join Newcastle. It's just if the club wants to go out and get him, that's just the only problem really, is that the club wants to spend that amount of money on a midfielder this transfer window. I personally said in the past no they would, but now that the opportunity is available and it looks like Paqueta will leave this window, will Newcastle now react to the situation and jump on it? That's the question though. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed watching the video today. Sorry if you didn't get a clear cut answer. I'm trying my best to answer those questions, but there's a lot of stuff going on there. I don't know, but hopefully those answers the questions there give you a bit more to the story. But anyway guys, take care. Thank you for watching. Yes, I will see you all in the next one.